All right, so first of all, it's so wonderful to be here. I'm so excited. Hello everyone. Bonjour à tous. This is an exciting day, an exciting event. Yesterday was fantastic, groundbreaking, and I just couldn't wait for today to come. I have three fantastic entrepreneurs, panelists, who will be out here with me having a conversation. This is about a conversation. And first we have Chloe Cheyenne. I hope I pronounced that right, Chloe? And Chris-Beth Cowie. And we have Kofi Hope. Well, I'm gonna have to pull a Farley. Can you just amplify that a little bit more? It takes courage to be here. It takes courage to start a business. It takes courage to run a business. It takes courage to invest. It takes courage to believe in yourself. So we're here today because we just have so much that we want to share. And basically, this is the conversation about the future of entrepreneurship in the Black community. All right, so today's topic, I think we want to just speak about our future, but also we need to look from whence we came and some of the footprints that has been imprinted and carved out for us to be able to be here today and to move to the future. So first we have Chloe, and Chloe, is it Cheyenne?
Yeah.
Excellent. Is the founder of and CEO of COMMUNITYx, a new social network for social good. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, Chloe founded her company after her dad's near-death experience with police brutality that's left him permanently handicapped. Chloe graduated from Howard University and formerly worked for Google and Emerson Collective. We'll also give an opportunity just to talk a little bit more about their business, because entrepreneurs, they're ready to go in, and they've been doing work within the community, not just to support themselves, but to change the narrative of how we do business, how we are seeing the community, and to create our space. We also have Chris-Beth Cowie. And Chris-Beth has spent the last 10 years carving out her own path, conquering uncharted territories, and creating new language along the way. And that's very interesting. I read your bio a little bit there. Drawing from a wealth of experience as social entrepreneur, speaker, humanitarian, Chris-Beth is spreading her invaluable knowledge out to other entrepreneurs. Simply put, she's the master of discovering business solutions and leading others to do the same in their businesses. And then we have Kofi, sorry. So Kofi is a Rhodes student, a scholar, and has a doctorate in politics from Oxford University. He's a co-founder and CEO of Monumental. He's a professor at the University of Toronto and writes a monthly column on the Toronto Star newspaper. Kofi has also founded multiple led organization and focus on supporting Black youth in Toronto. As you can see, all three of our panelists today have a social focus in making a difference in our community. And then, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your company, just for like a minute or two, and then we get into our questions. You want to start, since you're my direct first person?
Hi. Yes. So thank you so much. I was like, you can introduce me all the time. I don't know where I came from, but I love it. Thank you so much. So my name is Chris-Beth Cowie. I am the founder of Empowered4X, which is a business training and consulting firm. We're a social enterprise that focuses on supporting entrepreneurs from ideation and those that are revenue generating. But one of the unique things about what we do, we also tap in and support youth entrepreneurs through the process. So sponsoring, we give a $500 grant and other opportunities to plug into our training session, because we believe that youth are core to where we're going next.
Okay, go ahead. Kowie.
So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Kofi Hope, and I'm the co-founder of Monumental. We are a social purpose business that I founded with a woman named Zara Ibrahim, and we're in the space of city building and real estate development, and we help major institutions think about how they put social impact and equity into their strategy as they build up our cities. And so we spend a lot of our time working with municipal governments or federal crown corporations that develop land, or some of the big developers like Tridel, Northcrest Developments, et cetera. And so we've been in the game for about 2 years, slowly building up our team, and we do a variety of projects on kind of major building sites across Ontario, and we also support organizations. Craig was here earlier. We're working on the strategic plan for BOF. We supported the Black Screen Office on their strategic plan. So we do that, but our big focus is in how we take the way our cities are built and make sure equity and benefits for community are at the heart of that.
Excellent. Thank you. And Chloe.
Hey everybody, I'm Chloe. I'm the founder and CEO of COMMUNITYx, which is a new app for change that connects like-minded change makers around causes and calls to action. We are founded by 2 former Googlers, myself and my CTO, Courtney Marshall. We met while we were both working at Google a few years back.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We've heard from Rosemary, we heard from Tiffany and Craig, BOF, TCBN, and FACE, and we're seeing how the money that's coming in our community, and thank you for your leadership, guys, and the leadership through the organization. We see how the money coming into our community, that's been, now we have access to how it's making change, how it's driving change. And as we talk about the future of entrepreneurship in the Black community, I just wondered if you could just, and any of you can answer, or all of you can answer, just not all at once, take time, take turns. But let's be very creative, as we're told, Isaac says, dream large, dream big. I wonder if we were to put on our creative hat for a minute and a mindset of utopia, but make it a bit pragmatic. What would you want the future of entrepreneurship in the Black community to look like?
Go ahead.
Okay, I can go.
Well,
So
it takes time to dream.
One of the things with Empowered Facts and in our mission and mandate is to create an equitable business landscape. I think it is so important when we look at when you think about entrepreneurs, the face of entrepreneurs, it's typically a white face, and typically a white male face, or typically a white male over 60 or older in that way. And I believe that for me, when sitting with my team, it's really saying that my face could be that, your face can be that, and really looking at us being in spaces where we have contributed but not gotten the visibility or recognition. So being in a space where we are seen and recognized for the work that we are doing and contributing on a daily basis, but more importantly, in spaces where we are oftentimes not having opportunities to plug in, really for us to be part of the solutions as we move forward. I think one of the good things, as one of the co-founders of ACBN, in partnership with Sheridan, you all heard today, we are seeing a lack of Black entrepreneurs in the clean tech green space, and we are working actively to take charge and enter into that space in a sustainable way. So when I think about it, it's us being everywhere. Representation matters, and we're at the forefront.
Awesome. Thank you. Kofi?
Yeah, I'll speak.
What does your big dream look like?
Yeah, I think part of my big dream obviously is around space and development and actually shaping the city. I'll just share a quick story. About 2 weeks ago, one of the things we're working on in Monumental is trying to build a BIPOC real estate incubator. So it would be for racialized folks to come and learn, how do you get into real estate development? Not just working for companies, but how do we own buildings, put them up in our communities? And so we got federal funding to design this program, which is going to be at U of T. And we had a room 3 weeks ago, it wasn't exclusively Black, but it was majority Black. And we had a contractor who is a Red Seal carpenter. We had someone who's a real estate agent. We had someone who does the financing. We had somebody who's been doing marketing. We had someone who's working around the Community Land Trust and Eglinton West. And the energy in that room, when you saw all the pieces to the puzzle were there, like people could have they felt like we were just going to step out of that and just form a development company today. And we know there's folks, there's Dream, there's Isaac, there are folks there, but there is so much room in that space for us to be building and creating shared resources and assets for our community and actually having space in the city, because we've seen how Black communities in the city of Toronto, where I live, right, have been pushed out. We're on Bathurst, we're at Vaughan Road, Eglinton West, and slowly communities been pushed out in part because we didn't have ownership of space. So one of the key things for me is how we come together, bring our skill sets together, and actually start owning properties, owning community infrastructure, and finding different ways to do it, like a community land trust, where we invest together and ensure that Black businesses have access to land for, eternity, hopefully. So that's part of my dream.
Excellent. Chloe.
I love Kofi's response, and I hope what I'm about to say isn't laden with too many American references, but on the way here, while my daughter was like blasting Katy Perry in my ear, I was thinking about this idea of liberation versus integration. And again, from American perspective, liberation aligning with Malcolm X and integration aligning with Martin Luther King. And then I thought, why is it so normal for white men to imagine colonizing space and colonizing a metaverse, but it's so preposterous for us, even in 2022, to imagine creating a space for ourselves in Canada and America and the world? And so I think when I think about your question, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, liberation or integration, I really lean towards liberation here, because I really think we need to invest in building our own space for the future.
Excellent. So now that the alarm went off and we have awakened, the barriers of Black entrepreneurs and business owners, especially, establishing some roots, are faced with racial discrimination through economic, market, social culture, and institutional barriers. How do we now see the future for Black entrepreneurs in the Black community, having all these barriers that face us every single day, and you have alluded to some of them? How do you really see it now that we've seen your dream? What is our reality now? Prior to change, not with change, but what is it right this second?
Yeah, and it's hard to say how long, but I would say certainly there has been an opening. There's been a change. It may not last for years to come, but certainly with the murder of George Floyd and the quote unquote racial awakening we saw in North America, and I think the continued discovery of those Indigenous children on lands in different parts of Canada, companies, organizations have shifted focus in a way that I think is unusual. Certainly I haven't seen before, many people I've spoken to haven't seen before, where people are actually asking, we're looking to subcontract a Black-owned business. They're actually willing to say Black. They're actually willing to speak about anti-Black racism. And I think Monumental and many other companies I know, I was just with Jason Murray, who founded BIPOC Executive Search. We were on the phone last week. He opened his business around the same time and has had this tremendous growth as well. There was a market opportunity where people were finally saying, oh yeah, racism still exists. Actually, we need to do something around it. Oh, maybe we can use the money that the millions we spend and actually put some of that towards Black communities. And I think it's important to step into that moment. But when they talk about social capital, there's two parts that people talk about. They talk about bridging and bonding. And I think you have to do both. And so I think this has been a bridging moment that organizations that traditionally were cut off from our community have opened up doors, not fully, but a crack, but enough for people to step in. And you have to bridge, that's part of social capital, to connect with other communities. But you also have to bond, which is building with your community, creating good social roots and connections. And so I think in the moment of opportunity we have now, it's how do we build connections with new organizations, but how do we also do things like this and build with each other and find ways to open up doors for each other. And so I think if we're doing that, because you have to walk and chew gum at the same time, I think we can see tremendous progress, because to be honest, in some of these organizations, it's 2 years out, and already anti-Black racism is, oh, that's so 2020, right? They're moving on. And so I think we have to keep pushing those doors open while we build with each other at the same time, and that's the recipe for success.
Thank you. Sorry. No, Chloe, go ahead. Oh, sorry, either or. Just jump in, guys.
Okay.
There's no order.
Yes, I think in terms of the work that we do at Untitled, we've been very fortunate to form new bridges, and I think in terms of, you know, ACBN being one of the organizations that were funded. In the room, there are several other organizations that was funded by the federal government to put on this conference as well. So make sure you're in this room networking with those organizations. I think we are in a time where there has been an awakening. There has been positive actions towards supporting Black-owned businesses. And I think from my perspective, working with entrepreneurs on a day-to-day basis, I think our previous panelists alluded to it, it's now also for us as entrepreneurs to get ready, right? That business plan that you've been kind of putting off, you got to get it done. And I think part of it is when we show up according to the standards and responsibilities, sorry about that, according to the standards and responsibilities that are required to participate in this marketplace, I feel like we have a true fighting chance. And now, not only just us showing up alone, now you're showing up with organizations, 40 organizations and more behind you, backing and supporting you. So I think from a barrier perspective, that window is open. We have organizations that are fighting for us. We now need to show up correct, if I can put it like that.
Excellent, thank you.
I don't know if I have much to add to that. I think when I reflect on, you know, what the dream is and what the current barriers are, I think that every barrier that exists today goes back to the fact that for centuries past, we've been investing in this idea of integration, which says that we need to figure out, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to education, when it comes to state, local, and federal government, how we fit in, how we assimilate with the reality that the white man has already built. And so that's why we're still dealing with police brutality. That's why we're still dealing with education inequity, with homelessness, with poverty. It's because everything that we have to do now, we're trying to fit a peg in a square hole, and we're not able to mold things according to the reality that we want to set for ourselves.
Facts. So we talked about the big dream, and we talked about a reality. And the reality is that we can achieve the big dream. And as you said, walking together, holding hands, not individually, but together, coming together to do that, we can definitely make the steps forward that we need to do in order to recognize, so that the gap between the reality and the dream identifies really what the gaps are, that we need to make an intentional and a conscious effort to fulfill those needs and fill those gaps. So now we want to explore these challenges that you talk about. We talk about quite a few challenges, and then the impact that those challenges have on the future for entrepreneurs itself, not just on the community, but entrepreneurs itself. And then can we also just maybe explore some of those solutions that will encourage and definitely move us towards sustainability? Because if we're not sustainable, there's really no future, is there? And then the dream means nothing. My dad says when you stop dreaming, you die. So we want to live, and we're living large. So therefore, what are some of the solutions to ensure that we move into a sustainable Black community in Canada? and beyond as we export and whatever else?
I can go first. What I would share, and this is a 3-day conference. So yesterday, the various organizations that were funded, along with various organization members, were in a room together. And I think the theme from yesterday that came up was, yes, we can do it. Our dreams can be accomplished. But how we do it is what truly matters, right? And so one of the things that was shared, 2 concepts that were shared yesterday, one being through a cooperative type of business model where we're not trying to build alone. Sometimes, I'm curious, who here runs a nonprofit organization? Just by a show of hand, nonprofit organization, okay? Entrepreneurs, for-profit ventures, okay? Okay, so back to my nonprofits. Put your hand up. Okay, so does your nonprofit generate revenue? Keep your hand up if it does. Okay, so some hands went down, hands went up. Okay, awesome. So one of the big concepts that was shared, and I truly believe as we're talking about stepping into viable solutions, it's true a social enterprise, social purpose type of business model. And there's a session later where we're going to be talking about social entrepreneurship. And I'm on that panel, so I invite you, a quick plug, check out that session later on. But really from the standpoint of we historically have been able to work collaboratively to make good things happen. And through not just the capitalistic type of business model, but where we keep impact at the forefront. We are looking at sustainability through a revenue model where we're cutting off the dependencies from the government and other organizations. Because if we, there's about 100 people here, if each of us were to contribute and pool our money together, we can do great things. And I think that's really where the solution lies with us at the end of the day. There are so many barriers outside. So I really like the concept of, that liberation. How can we know the barriers that exist in the outer world, and it's now, let's create a world of our own working towards our dreams.
Excellent.
I think I would take that saying, each one, teach one, that one of the critical pieces, right? Entrepreneurship can be a very lonely path. I'm blessed that I have a co-founder, a co-leader, so I'm on the Zoom for hours every day with her, and we're back and forth with ideas, but it's still a very lonely journey. I remember being executive director of a nonprofit, and there's few people who can understand what that's like. There's few people you can talk to for confidentiality reasons about all the things going on. And so I think it is so important for us to bring together peers and to learn from each other. I think you can do a course, you can go to business school, all of those things are great. But even there, it's the networks you make. Like, I see my brother Eldon over there. Last summer, I remember we did a bike ride along the lake shore for like 4 or 5 hours, just talking about our businesses, talking about our ideas, how we run it. And I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, we get very proprietary. We think, I can't tell anyone how I run my finances. I can't tell anyone how I market. I can't tell anyone how I do it. As if people can't find this if they go looking online, right? But I think we just restrict ourselves that way, and it's really about, and anyone reaches out to me, I'll explain how we hire people. I'll talk about how do we do a strategic planning session, how do we work clients, all those different pieces, how do we build relationships, because I think holding that knowledge actually holds you back. And so we have to find spaces where we come together, because no one can really understand entrepreneurship except another entrepreneur, because it's such a unique piece, because of the risk, because of the stress, all the things you have to manage. And so I think a key piece for us is finding spaces like this and building networks. And it's not just peers. Who in the room has a mentor? Put your hand up. That's excellent, but it would be great if everyone could say it. And who here mentors someone? Right? And that's the key. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir right now, but this is such a big part of it, right? Not only how do we support each other as peers, but how do we open the doors for those folks coming up, and especially those established business owners in the Black community, those who are retired and whatnot, how they can then pass on that knowledge. I think that is one of the key to how we overcome almost all the barriers, because it might be new for me, but But I guarantee there's someone in the room, it's not new for them, and they've already figured it out. They've already cracked the code.
Actually, Kofi, I think too many times we're all mentors, but not realize we're mentoring until somebody actually said to you, but remember about 5 years ago when I spoke to you, and this is what happened as a result of the conversation. So a lot of time it's not even conscious that we're doing that, which is pretty awesome. Thank you for that. Chloe, did you want to share that?
I would say, in terms of solutions, I guess broadly, a lot of people say, like, buy Black. I would say not just build Black, but build radically Black. When I think about my company, from our board of directors to our advisory board, to our founding team, to our leadership team, to the employees that we hire, to every single one of our investors, and we've just closed we're closing a $2 million round. All Black, all radically Black. So I think that can be a really strong form of liberation, because in doing so, you can make yourself an indispensable part of the local, national, and global economy.
Awesome, thank you. And I guess as you work towards reinventing yourself as well as we move through the pandemic, which takes us to, so the COVID-19 pandemic has further stressed Black-owned businesses and definitely have caused racial wealth gap to widen. So as we emerge from the pandemic, unmasking, narrowing our social distances, choosing how many jabs that we want, and really gaining autonomy over our lives and shifting as we shift towards the economic recovery. And your desires to be change agents is so apparent. And also too, you continue to build healthy Black-owned businesses. So thinking of your own sustainability within your own business and your scope as a Black entrepreneur, what is it like being an entrepreneur today? I hear some of your successes, but what is it like when you stand up in a crowd? Maybe these are all white people standing here, right? Or South Asian or anything else except Black, but you're the only, because quite often I'm the only Black person in a room. What does it feel like you stand up and say, I'm an entrepreneur, a very proud one? What's that feeling? And what's that feeling like talking about your own peers in here of your own culture, and you're also saying that same statement, I am an entrepreneur? What does that feel like? There's no feeling, or it's so great to think about it.
This is one of the hardest things that I've ever done. I can't say it's the hardest because I'm raising a 4-year-old girl in 2022, so that's extremely difficult, especially in the US with all of the issues that we have going on. But this is it's hard. And for, now I can say we're closing a round. We have NBA players as investors on our board. Van Jones is one of my advisors, my advisory board members. We work with all kinds of people. We do things all over. But there was like 10 months where I just didn't want to get out of bed. I was so depressed, and I felt so alone, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to build the company that I had inside my heart, and that was like tearing me apart. The will, I think Mike Tyson says the will to win. Like, the will to win inside you has to be able to defy everything in order to get through those moments, in order to get through 10 months of just constant depression. That will has to be so strong. And that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in growing my company. And I really try and stay attuned with how I'm feeling and how things are affecting me, because it's not just a one-time thing. Like, as your company continues to grow, as you continue to get bigger, you're gonna still have those moments, and you just need to be able to find that inside of you and pull yourself through it.
Fantastic. Either or, jump in.
I think it's so much about having that confidence and self-belief, not arrogance, but that belief. When you talked about those spaces, that happens all the time for me. Like, we do work with boards of directors of billion-dollar companies. We're working with CEOs, those sort of folks, and I present younger than I am. I'm pretty casual, and I'll literally see in rooms the way people will look at me, and then someone say, "Oh, he's Dr. Hope, graduated from Oxford," and suddenly the way people's posture changes, the way they look at you, the way they speak to you, it suddenly transforms. And I'm someone, I don't lead with my credentials. I don't try to put that forward. I try to just be Kofi, as I am with anybody else. But in those settings, it's easy to be intimidated. It's easy to feel you're the fish out of water. It's easy to start questioning yourself because people don't respect you because of the way you're speaking to, until you start hitting them with facts, until you start hitting them with those credentials. But then you can come off as arrogant or self-absorbed of all those pieces. But the key to me has always been knowing who you are. Right? I know who I am. I know the family that raised me. I know the communities that I've served. I know the work that I've done. And so sometimes you can just sit back and watch and say, okay, I can tell you're not taking me seriously right now, but no problem. No problem. I know what I'm here for. I know the mission I'm on. I know, what I was chosen to do in this context, and I'm going to do it. But that is difficult. And I think the way you get there is you have to be surrounded by a loving and caring community, right?
And
my
courage.
Wife, my parents, my family, my daughter, friends, all of those people, right? It can be a lonely road, and no one can do it without a community, without a village behind them. And so as entrepreneurs, we need that self-care, but we also have to make time for those people we love in our lives, because they give you the strength when you're in that room with 50 people who don't look like you, who are questioning while you're there, right? Those people, and even our ancestors, are behind us, and they're the ones who have our backs and hold us up so we push forward.
Thank you for that. That's the courage we talked about at the beginning. It takes courage to thrive.
Hey, powerful. Thank you so much for sharing, and I can relate to so much there as well. I think I get it in reverse. So I studied international development at the University of Guelph, so I have my BA, and the strides that I've made on my entrepreneurial journey, sometimes when I go into rooms, I used to be the youngest entrepreneur, the only one that looked like me entrepreneur, and then I'm put on a stage, and it's like, do you have your master's? Do you have your doctorate? And it's like, you kind of feel like, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? But I think when I open my mouth and speak about the experiences, I can show financial statements that I could pay my own bills, kind of thing. The conversation changes in that way, but I can totally relate. It comes back to that belief in self. And honestly, there are days when you are feeling defeated because you didn't make that sale. You have payroll that you gotta fulfill, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate this space. But at the end of the day, I think, that determination, in spite of how you feel, keeping the vision at the forefront has definitely helped me on my journey. I started this because I felt like I wanted to seek help from mentors, advisors, and so running a training and consulting firm, it came out of my own need, and now I am helping other people who are on this journey saying, I need help, and it's a privilege every day that I get a chance to do this. So that's really what
and that's really giving back. So to wrap up, we have our final question. So when you think about this, because we're talking about the future of entrepreneurship in the Black community, and how could we not talk about our youth, our young people, the next generation. I feel like teach them well and let them lead the way, right? So that's what that's our mission here as well, not just for ourselves and our generation, but how do we make sure that we build sustainable our future? And that's by including our youth. So what are some of the changes we would make in how we groom our young Black entrepreneurs to ensure a sustainable, healthy, and wealthy Black community for their generations and those that follow, so their children's children? So what are some of the things consciously? I mean, resilience. We talk about that a lot, but what can we do differently, or how can we show them differently so that we know their future is protected and as we close the wealth gap?
Yeah, I can start with that. I started my entrepreneurial journey when I was 26 years old officially. I say officially because it was at the time when I registered my business. Folks, if you have your little side hustle, if it's serious, register your business, move towards incorporation, set yourself up right in that way. So I started that as a youth, and I had this desire of, inspiring people, sharing, you have value. Greatness is within you. And I started going into school. So that was the genesis of my speaking and training in that way. And so I think it is going into the schools and saying, one, there's a whole disruption that needs to happen with our education system, but really from the vantage point of what can I do as aunts, uncles, grandparents, parents, all of these things. It's really pouring in that it is possible to our youth from a very young age. And again, as I shared earlier, representation matters. There are so many entrepreneurs, so many people raise their hands. You are an inspiration for the people that you're surrounded by. It's helping to tell more of those stories. So that's what I would share.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think one of the ways we have to support our young people around thinking about this journey is challenging the stereotypical vision of what an entrepreneur is. And I'm very unusual, right? I spent 90% of my career in social service work and have just 2 years in running a private company, 2 or 3 years in. But part of what we did around workforce development at the organization I helped co-found was talk to young men and young women about their economic journey. And what so much we look to in the media, so many of the people that put on a pedestal are these kind of white male shark, like you look at Steve Jobs, you look at Elon Musk, like these guys are, excuse my language, assholes. Like they're not nice people. They have this cutthroat approach to business. They self-proclaim that, that's how they do it. And showing to folks, that is not the only way to be an entrepreneur. That is not the only way to be successful in business. There are actually different ways to do it. I talk to folks about servant leadership, what it means to be someone who cares about your staff team deeply, who creates a culture that actually gives people time for selves. When I ran my nonprofit and with Monumental, we give all staff a paid month off in August. Regardless, even if you're the bookkeeper and you're only there 3 hours a week, we're paying you for those 3 hours in August because we appreciate you and we want you to have time with your family and we want you to be, able to live your full life. And I think saying that it doesn't have to be this, man on a horse just pushing through and not feeling and not caring and snaking people out. You can actually be a leader that's compassionate, that's empathetic, that focuses on being relational over transactional. That is a model that can succeed in business, that can succeed in life. And letting people know those are ways, because so often people don't go into entrepreneurship because you spoke about that, the round hole and the square peg. They see, I have to be this to be an entrepreneur. That's not me, so I can't be in this. But showing, no, there's a multitude of ways of doing it, and there's actually more humane and more community-minded ways to do it that I think are part of 21st century entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Kofi. And Kowie?
I agree. One of my favorite rappers is Tupac, and he said, if there's no hope for the youth, then there's no hope for the future. And I think that's truer now more than ever. The other day I was in a meeting listening to Jesse Jackson speak And as I was watching him speak, and his health is just, it's ailing tremendously. And just looking at him and knowing all that he's been through the civil rights movement, just every type of thing he's seen, and you could just see it on his face, you could see it in his body. But he was still standing there delivering to us a message of hope. And that's when I realized that our generation needs to be, we need to preserve ourselves, we need to take care of ourselves enough to be able to deliver that same message of hope to the next generation. Because if you think about it, like, what they're hearing now, they're hearing that the climate doesn't have much longer. They're hearing that police brutality is only getting worse, that crazy things are happening in schools. There's a mental health, there's a global mental health crisis. They're dealing with so much right now. It's really incumbent upon us to give them whatever energy we have left, just like Jesse Jackson was standing there giving to us. We need to be able to give that same energy from within ourselves to the next generation and make sure that they still have hope as they're growing up in this society.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard some really powerful, inspirational words. These guys are going to be here for the rest of the day. So, use that opportunity to really reach out to them and share their story and share your story as well. The takeaway is own your space. Be resilient, network, be leaders, and allow yourself to be led, and mentor and allow to be mentored. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, my wonderful panel, Chloe, Kofi, and Chris-Beth. Wonderful. Thank you.